For over 3 decades, Roy Rogers was known to millions as the King of the Cowboys, crooning while riding in over 100 Western movies. On this episode of History Hunters, Jeff and Sarah stop by the house in Apple Valley, California, where Roy and Dale Evans Rogers lived and died. They'll also visit the desert graves of the famous couple within the Sunset Hills Memorial Park.
We are rolling down this road in a semi-rural part of San Bernardino County. On this street once lived one of the most famous TV and movie personalities of my grandparents and my parents' generation.
So we're in Apple Valley, California. I have not been down here to the Victorville, Apple Valley area since I was 19 years old. I had a great aunt and uncle that lived down here, but at the time there was the Roy Rogers Museum because Roy Rogers lived right there in that house. He's right across the street from the golf course over here. Roy Rogers was an immensely popular Western actor who starred in probably over 100 Republic film productions. He was known as the singing cowboy. He was also known for his yodeling. But I didn't have the opportunity at that time to know exactly where Roy Rogers was residing. And I found out through some internet research, of course, right over here is where he lived. We are on Tomahawk Lane at the corner of Tiger Tail Road. And believe it or not, Roy Rogers lived in that Spanish-style home back there. It's kind of shaped like a horseshoe. A Mexican family bought it, I think, a year ago for $605,000. It has 5 bedrooms and 7 baths. I'm going to show you the gate over here. It still has the RR on the gate. I had written to Roy Rogers many times, but I didn't know this address, so I used the Roy Rogers Museum address. If this gate with the RR isn't proof we are in the right place, I don't know what is. The family decided that they were going to leave the RR on the gate, and instead of meaning Roy Rogers, it now it's being Rambling Rose. Here's the other gate, showing the house, and I believe that Roy Rogers actually passed away in this house. This house was built in 1979, but I understand that Roy and Dale Evans lived in Apple Valley since 1965. So before Roy and Dale lived here, they lived in an old adobe house out on Highway 18. In fact, one of my most prized Roy Rogers collectibles is a signed bank check in which he paid $8 for a month of cable TV service. When the house was for sale recently, a real estate company posted these videos to promote it. This is to give you an idea of what was inside the house, minus all the furnishings the couple had in the house. The interior looks very dated by today's standards. Over there, Sarah's in the Subaru, which is parked approximately where Roy and Dale posed for this photograph. Right across the street, there's nothing developed. It's just scrub brush and fallen trees and such. But yeah, that's where Roy Rogers lived. So it's pretty cool. That is, it fell into some good hands, and they're going to keep it as a private residence. No need to turn it into a museum. Roy's museum collection that was here in Victorville was actually moved to Branson, Missouri, and I guess for lack of interest, that facility closed, and Roy's entire collection of saddles, pictures, even stuffed Trigger were sold off to private collectors. In case you were wondering what happened to Trigger, his taxidermied remains were purchased by the cable network RFD TV for $266,000, as was Bullet the Wonder Dog at $35,000. Now we're going to go and show you where Roy Rogers lives today. the Sunset Memorial Park Cemetery. Do you even know who Roy Rogers is?
I've heard the name, but I couldn't pick him out of a lineup. Cowboy movie dude.
You couldn't pick him out of a lineup?
Famous for yodeling.
Alright, I promised to show you the new home of Roy Rogers. Well, you probably already know that he passed away in 1998. Dale Evans, his wife, who was his sidekick in films, passed away in February of 2001. And Roy is buried right over here. I read that Dale would spend hours here in this garden after Roy's death writing sections of her book. By the way, she appeared in about 41 movies, all but 5 in the 1950s. Right here behind this fence has the Cowboy's Prayer in it. The graves of Roy Rogers and Dale Evans. The tombstones have their signatures, and that's a whole story in itself. I happened to find out that one of his secretaries, Francine Williams, was signing autographs for him en masse. And a lot of people think they have his signature, but she did such a skilled job forging his signature that a lot of people, even a lot of autograph dealers, think they have the real thing. Turns out Miss Williams signed it for him. One of the ways that you can tell Roy Rogers' real signature is that he brought the Y up and touched the bottom of the R, and there were some other different nuances as well. It's hard to believe that the King of the Cowboys and his wife are buried right here. As you can tell, it's got the 3 crosses on to represent their Christian faith. Over there is a block of polished granite etched with a favorite Bible verse from Psalm 42:1. There's an eagle sculpture with another marked etched with a passage from Isaiah. Roy Rogers was actually born as Leonard Franklin Sly, as you can see on the tombstone. He was born at 412 2nd Street in Cincinnati, and the property on which he was born was later condemned so they could build the Riverfront Stadium in 1968. Roy liked to joke that he was born on second base. On the wall by the graves is this one, which is one of Dale's favorite scripture passages. So if you're wondering about the number 33 inside of a triangle, that signifies that he was a 33rd degree Mason. So on the top of Dale's grave, you'll see the angel underwear artwork. She wrote a book about their daughter Robin, who was born with Down syndrome and who passed away in 1952 at the age of 2 years old. Over there is the Roy Rogers and Dale Evans Sunset Chapel. A very beautiful spot here. I am the only one out here today, except for somebody that's grieving the loss of somebody else over here. It's close to 100 degrees and it's September. It's very hot out here in the desert. This is really an interesting cemetery because it goes right up the hill here, and there are people buried amongst the rocks and the boulders out there. It's almost as though Roy Rogers picked out this spot because it resembles a lot of the scenery in a lot of his movies. The western boulders, the high desert. It's an incredible place. I saw pictures of this cemetery online and I just thought it was an amazing cemetery. Sunset Hills Memorial Park was dedicated in 1995. There's a waterfall and a ram, statue of a ram here. The ram is drinking water. Amazing. I saw pictures of the large horse that was Trigger outside the museum. I thought it was here, but boy, I am not seeing it. The horse was here for a while until it was taken down. Some felt it wasn't appropriate having a horse like that in a cemetery. So it was brought back to Apple Valley, where it stands at the Spirit River Center. One last thing I want to show you, kind of how they have some of the memorials up here, where people have been buried among the boulders, believe it or not. The tombstones, graves up here in the rocks, those are actually artificial rocks. And I'm hearing either dogs off in the distance, or I'm actually hearing coyotes. Very much like a Roy Rogers movie. Look at this pathway that goes up here. I guess you can have your loved one buried here on the hillside, close to where Roy Rogers is buried. Up here in these steps, you can see they can put some ashes here. Isn't that amazing? And they've got artwork all around here. It's crazy. This is almost a place where you want to break out and sing, "Happy trails to you, whenever we're apart. Happy trails to you.
Keep smiling until then. Who cares about the clouds if we're together? Just sing a song and bring the sunny weather. Happy trails to you till we meet again."
I understand Dale Evans wrote that song. But of course, Roy made it a hit with her, a duet. I can't think of a more fitting place for the King of the Cowboys, somebody who typified the Old West in American films. It should be noted that Roy Rogers and Gene Autry were both vying for the first position of being the most popular Western actor in the 1940s and 1950s.
Just like Gene and Roy singing those campfire
Until I think the space age basically took out the popularity of a lot of the cowboy westerns. Sarah's enjoying doing word puzzles or some kind of game on her computer. Over here is the Roy Rogers Dale Evans Sunset Chapel. I'm going to go in there, stick my head in there and see if there's anything related to Roy Rogers or Dale Evans. I'm not sure if Roy Rogers and Dale Evans paid to have this built, but it kind of makes sense since their name's on it. Wow, so look at that. Roy, always your pal, Gene Autry. What's interesting about this memorial is that Roy Rogers died on July 6, 1998, and Gene Autry died on October 2nd of that same year. Here's more of the Angel Unaware theme. The ashes of a married couple are here with their pictures. It's very interesting how they do this here. Up here is a gentleman, Donald Miller, who was in the Navy during World War II. Right here is some artwork in bronze. The Roy Rogers Double R Ranch. Gabby Hayes. There's a likeness of Roy and Dale on their TV show, which ran from 1951 to 1957, way before I was born. And here with Gabby Hayes as well on the door. Oh, it's locked. It's locked today. This is a memorial slab dedicated to Shirley Ann Duke, who called herself the #1 fan of Roy and Dale. Here's a plaque dedicated to the Brewster family of Apple Valley. According to this plaque, Dale Evans Rogers requested this chapel be built in memory of Roy, and apparently Chet Hitt saw to its building in 2007. Neither Roy or Dale saw it.
If you're ever in Apple Valley and have some free time, mosey on over to the Sunset Memorial Park and visit Roy and Dale. It just might conjure up images of a simpler time when all the cowboy needed was his horse, a bedroll, his gun, and possibly a guitar. Oh, and let's not forget his honey waiting for him somewhere back home.
That lumber pile up high, gonna build it to the sky. Big job to do, I know, but she's my